This the scene at the start of the race this morning as the riders assembled. Sonny Cambrelli and so many others from Bahrain Merida really looking forward to the action. Arnaud Demar, somewhat more pensive figure, Française de Jeu, classics man and a great sprinter, knows this is a wonderful opportunity to take a big World Tour success last Bowman. The Lotto NL Jumbo squad. There is another opportunity to honour the dead of the First World War again in this year's event. We'll be talking about that when we run the rule over the parcours as the race progresses. And bring Matthews, Michael Matthews, will he be able to get to the line in the front group? It's a big opportunity for him to come up with a major Northern Classic success. For the Aussie, it would be World Tour squad. Team Sky have their unit here. Lotto Soudal will be hoping that they can come up with something. Jürgen Rollens and Jens de Buskere, two riders who've been in the top 6 in this event in the past, but have yet to mount the top step of the podium. So coming up with the big results is certainly not easy. Always the cream rising to the top, whether it does turn out to be a big group sprint or a solo success, or indeed a sprint from a very small group. Peter Sagan has the ability to perform regardless of what's presented to him, and he will be hopping mad after not exactly having the day out that he wanted in E3 12 months ago. John Degenkolb, as I said, 2014 winner, and a man who leads a very strong team. Jasper Stuyven can sprint as well, so there's every chance that they'll have something to offer. Well, Norway have had 2 winners in the past, but neither of them was Alexander Kristoff. He leads a really strong squad, including Tony Martin. And Tom Bonen, as I said, 3-time winner of this race. First one back in 2007. He's on the Victory Tour. He's got his last win was 2012. Can he go out with a bang? Oh, Greg van Avermaet, what a stunning display from him throughout the winter, throughout the early spring classic season. And Greg van Avermaet yet to win this event. But this was the scene at the start. The Wanty Group Gobert squad moved to the front of the peloton, and a minute's silence to observe and remember their fallen comrade Antoine de Moitié, who died in this event 12 months ago. Such a tragic occurrence, and we hope one not to be repeated. Moitié crashing and then subsequently hit by a motorbike, and it has led to much conversation about race vehicles and the new protocols introduced by the UCI since then. So it was the Wanty Group Gobert squad that were on the front of the peloton and had the honour of leading the field away for the ceremonial start. Tom Bonen working his way through the field, no sense of urgency or panic in the early stages, but you can be sure that he would be to the fore when the flag came in. And a quick step floor squad, we mentioned Bonen as a 3-time winner of this race, but Fernando Gaviria among their number, and indeed well, pretty much any one of their 8 riders would be a worthy winner of this event. Certainly they have strength in abundance right from the get-go. Cannondale Drapac professional cycling team. And it was pared down. Their advantage to the chasers, the leading group of chasers, was pared down to less than 3 minutes, and then, as if by magic, the 2 groups merged behind, and that was it. A cessation in hostility.
Ja.
De hoogte is aan de hoek.
Ja.
Hij zegt, gaat te laag.
Toch? Kijk. Dan ben je voor mensen gedaan. Bien serious.
Zwaaien, nee, Briekje. Iedereen gaat zwaaien. Iedereen gaat zwaaien. Hier, dat politie. Zwaaien maar.
Away up front once more. So now controlling an advantage at about 7 minutes and 23 seconds. Looks like there's a few riders in between, but it's around about 7 riders. Just
vaste groep, hè. Altijd in tijd? Ja.
Oh ja, dat is een geval.
Tapels, hè? Ja.
Aan de kant, Lucas. Lucas aan de kant.
Worst aan de kop, ja.
Ja, cool hè? Ja.
Dus het...
Hoe loopt het?
Yes, one of the numerous spills that have befallen the riders, and several indeed. Arno de Maar from Française des Jeux, Stijn Vandenberg, Oliver Nassen, who we showed so well a couple of days ago, involved in that crash. We understand pretty much all of the riders are back up. We do know that Wouter Wippert is a DNF. He's crashed earlier in the day. No serious injuries, but he's not been able to rejoin the fray. But yeah, that was one of those tough ones. And just spill over on the right-hand side of the road as Otto Vergaarde of Verandas Willems Krellen face plants. Kinsey Addo, Brian Smith, and Brian, it's been all action so far. It's good news for these guys, I think, that it's come back together again behind.
Yeah, there was a time when it really split up in the crosswinds, and you know, there's a lot of chasing, especially the Quick Step team were driving the ahead of the peloton, and the gap came down to the group of 9 in front. But just an update, we also have a women's race that's just finished, and the woman on fire yet again. She won Gent-Wevelgem, but Lotte Lapisto, the Finnish sprinter, won a bunch sprint just a few moments ago to take her second big win in a week. So congratulations to her and her team. But although it was a bunch sprints, it was a very attacking race. And in fact, there was a couple of attacks just in the final couple of kilometres. But it did come back to a bunch finish, won by Lotte Lapisto. It's nice to see the start of the men's race, and you know, develop the story and the picture of what's happened so far. But unfortunately, we do not have the authority to show the pictures of the women's race. We have to rely on the host broadcast. But I think maybe instead of seeing the sign on or anything like that, it would have been nice to maybe have seen the women's sprint finish. But we might get that at the finish after the men's.
Yes, indeed. We're in the lap of the gods there, but hopefully we do get some images from the women's race coming up later on in the broadcast. Won't promise it, but fingers crossed they might be there. Just over 100 kilometres remaining. Gent-Wevelgem is boiling up nicely in the hot sunshine. Well, it's pretty cool conditions for the riders, but there's no question of wearing arm warmers or leggings. Everybody's got, well, not all, but several riders wearing covers on their shoes, but well, it's more likely to not have them than to have them. This is the 9 riders that have been up front since the early stages. Things kicked off by Mark McNally, actually. Wanty Group Gobert wearing Dossard number 199, and his fallen teammate 192.
Kind of on cement roads, so I don't think it's anything to worry about for the riders. But when they say they're doing this, then obviously it just adds to the nerves.
Inside 100k to go in Gent-Wevelgem, as Team Sky boss things on the right hand side of the peloton, trying to keep everyone in safe position, and that is the position of maximum opportunity. Man sitting third in line there is Luke Rowe, all very cool, calm and collected at the moment. The peloton has put itself back together again after that little bit of a chase to get back on after the previous climbs. It's all back together again, and of course riders are fighting manfully to get into position. So it's not the entire Sky team, because Danny Van Poppel finds himself at the back of the field and not really enjoying things, so it doesn't look good for Van Poppel. But Luke Rowe sitting third wheel, absolutely perfect. Interesting decision here from the Rumpot squad to try and shake things up a little bit. They've got riders in the breakaway. They're clear by almost 6 minutes, remember, but Team Rumpot have decided to kick it off. Unusual to see the Pro Continental squad going on the attack.
Yeah, but the rider at the front there, Pim Lichtaert, former Dutch champion, very experienced rider, and they're deciding now is the time. They want to have riders in front, they want to have opportunities. They don't really want to wait. As you say, they're a second division team. They have to fight for what they can get, and as you see the Sky-led peloton, they're controlling things. But earlier on today, Quick Step were kind of bossing things. It all came back together, but it was a hard chase from a lot of riders behind. So looks as if Rompot's, the team in orange, will want to try and kick things off.
Kuznetsov from Team Katusha towards the back of the peloton. His teammate Alexander Kristoff's been sprinting well. They also have in good sprinting form Baptiste Blancart, so it's kind of a collection of really strong sprinters. Michael Morkov as well would be a great pair of legs to have should they be able to get him to the finale. Rick Sabel too, but how many of those riders will still be involved? Because I tell you what, this peloton is not going to be that big going to the finish line in Wevelgem at the conclusion of today's affairs. Lichtart at the back of the group here. And as I said, Rompot involved in the breakaway up front. Elmar Reinders, the 25-year-old Dutchman. Almost 6 minutes to the good, but that gap is shrinking fast in this sustained period of pressure. Interesting decision from Team Rompot. They want their best riders to be up front when things dimension data. Preben van Hek, the former Belgian champion. He's the veteran, 34 years of age.
Pas op aan de kant, Lucas. Pas op aan de kant, hè. Oh, oh, pas op. Die zijn wij, hè?
Crashes today already, affecting a lot of the riders. So it's a battle of attrition over 249 kilometres, but it's a battle all the time to keep good road space, because you never know what's going to happen. And thrown into the mix, these three sectors of unmade road, the Plug Street, and it's going to be interesting to see, but it definitely adds a little element of nerves into a race like this.
Yeah, the first sector of Plug Street, 3 in total. The first of those comes with just under 60 kilometres remaining in the race, around about the 60k to go, so there's just a bit over 30 kilometres to go before we hit that. Plenty of climbs in between then and now. And he's enjoying the view. Time for a drink and something to eat as they survey the riders passing by in the World Tour. Interesting that, well, they've got great sprinting talent at Bora Hansgrohe, but no question about the pecking order. The world champion, Peter Sagan's being looked after by Sam Bennett, among others. His brother also included, Juraj Sagan. Plenty of talk that there wasn't much strength and depth in the Bora Hansgrohe squad at the start of the year when he moved across, when Peter Sagan moved across, but that hasn't proved to be the case so far this week. Great performance from Lucas. Well, yet another one of those interminable crashes affects riders in the peloton, and we're in Gent-Wevelgem for 2017 with riders from Team Cofidis just picking themselves out of the ditch. All sorts of issues and problems, and plenty of riders, I think, who are of a mind to just pack it in for the day. There didn't seem to be a wild amount of enthusiasm to get back up, and plenty of riders suffering as a result of that. So many riders have been on the deck today, like Mikkel Reim from the Israel Cycling Academy was among them. Also his teammate Guy Segiv from the Pro Continental squad, the Israel Cycling Academy. Zach Dempster is among their number, but no sign of him there in that group. One of the Team Katusha riders, and we saw that rider from Cofidis down in the ditch, but he's well out of it at this stage, I think back in his bike and running. So picking up the rider from Katusha, trying to make his way back into the fray, and then having to make that little adjustment as he encounters this one. This is Kuznetsov, Vyacheslav Kuznetsov. Meanwhile, up front, there's a group of 9 riders have just over 5 minutes advantage on the rest of the peloton. And how many of these riders are going to be able to get back into it? And when we saw that difficult moment for Kyle Reinen a few days ago.
The cars all stop on the right-hand side, and you just have to run. So the mechanics have to be fairly fit to run up there, and you could be running up there for nothing. But I did notice that in that crash that Mark Renshaw was there. We do not have Mark Cavendish in it. That's why you've got you know, the team that's here looking at it. Another crash yet again. It's just fighting for road space, and with a very large group. But it looks nasty when Robert Wagner trying to help a fellow rider up there. That's really nice to see, but it's just fighting for space, and you know, that was a nasty bit. I'm just looking at it here. I think he missed that post, but yeah, it's just fighting for road space purely. But just going back to, you know, Mark Cavendish, unfortunately, yeah, he's one of the riders that could feature. He's done well in this race before, but unfortunately, I think he's been told to rest up. Just luckily, at that crash again, just missing that post.
Yeah, it's just they come thick and fast, don't they? And that is Belgian Classics racing, and that is why I think, to a certain extent, that some of the team managers were a little bit reluctant. Embrace the idea of having 4 kilometres of dirt roads, because their thinking is you don't add in the difficulties that we already have. Certainly, Patrick Lefevre was among the most vocal in disputing the notion that we should have more dirt roads introduced into races. Strada Bianca has been a bit of a revolution in world cycling in the last few years. They've created this new event. Actually, it came out of a sportive that celebrates the history of cycling, and people, I think, like to harken back to the old days. There's a sense of it really embracing the heritage of the sport, but and Gent-Wevelgem have tried to do that as well.
Gaviria. Steven, dit was op bij Lucas. Hier, de Vrezen was het daar. Je doet helemaal quickstep. Je hebt ze laten verrassen, zijn volgens mij.
Out front, it's starting to build nicely in Gent-Wevelgem. We're back after these. Of that moment when he was blown off the road, quite literally, in Gent-Wevelgem a couple of years ago. It's altogether more benign weather. We're on the Kemmelberg, and there's a crowd out, as you might expect. It's touching 20% in places on this, and this is going to hurt. It certainly looks as if it's hurting Christophe Masson. Been in the breakaway 2 days ago. Long day out for him, and it looks as if he's not enjoying this. But Loic Chetou of Cofidis, by contrast, and Preben van Heck, who's born to this sort of riding, sitting in the centre of picture and sitting on the front of the group. It's the only place to be. Hugo Uhl looks comfortable, looks strong. Mark McNally, Ryan Mullen on the right-hand side in the lime green colours of Team Cannondale. Jay Thompson to the left of picture. the dark colours, the black colours of Team Dimension data. And Israel Cycling Academy are represented by the Dutchman Dennis van Winden, former World Tour rider, dropped down to pro-continental level, but wants to show his face in roads that will be familiar to him. And Preben van Hex really stomping on the pedals. I suspect there's a surge of adrenaline from the crowds on this climb. It really is one of the fabled ascents in world cycling, and he seems to be enjoying himself.
Yeah, he's an experienced rider, but he's pushing out. He obviously wants to show well, and yeah, he could do with keeping as many of these riders with him as possible. And it does look as if all 9 riders will stay together. The rider at the back there, Christophe Masson for Verin Classic, the 31-year-old Frenchman, just kind of hanging a little bit, but it does look as if it will come back together. But really interested to see who is pushing hard at the front of the peloton as we come up the first ascent of the Kemmelberg.
Thanks to Terry Wenman, who's given us the information that and he's asked for a shout out for GB's Jacob Hennessy, who's just won the junior Gent-Wevelgem. So it's at the outset of a great career, and that's a hell of a result. Fellow Brit Mark McNally's up front, and going well, likes this kind of racing. He and Ryan Mullen, of course, former were they teammates? They certainly both rode for the En Post Sean Kelly outfit in Belgium. That's where they learnt their trade in the 3rd division, the continental level. And so many top riders have been presented through to pro-continental and world tour level by the En Post Sean Kelly team in Belgium. Riders coming to grief at the back of affairs.
Yeah, that was Matti Breschel of Astana, who'd shown some good form in the week in Vlaanderen. But at the front, you can see Lars Boom on the left-hand side with Tom Bonen, Greg van Avermaet, Degenkolb. You know, there's a lot of riders towards the front. Edvard Bosenhagen, Stannard on the left-hand side. So Daniel Oss, and I also seen the last year's winner, the world champion Peres Sagan, towards the front as well, Michael Matthews. So most of the riders expecting to feature in today's race have made their way to the front of the peloton.
Well, still a big bunch, hasn't split yet. First time up the Kemmelberg. I wonder how big the bunch is going to be and how much fun they'll be having. There's quite a few in there don't look like they're having any fun at all, and they've still got almost 74 kilometers remaining, more indeed for these guys, as they make their way up the Kemmelberg. Tornado Tom Tomek wants to boss it. Listen to the crowd roar as Tom Bonen goes to the front of the bunch. Well, can he deliver one last time? Peter Sagan, well, he's not taking too many risks, is he? And he's looking for his teammates around him. I think he wants as much company as possible. He's not concerned about it splitting. As Jure Sagan, his teammate, and his brother, and indeed the reigning Slovakian national champion, just one of countless hordes, and it's a big bunch that assaults the Kemmelberg for the first ascent. This is climb number 8 of 11 in total. Next one up is the Monteberg, and that comes, well, not too far afterwards. It's only about 4 kilometers from the top of the Kemmelberg to the top of the Monteberg, the 9th climb of the day. After the Monteberg, then we've got a run of about, well, just around about 20 kilometers to the first of the Plugstrait, those short sections of dirt road, which have been a bit of a controversial addition. But I think the fans are going to enjoy them. Certainly I'm looking forward to it. Inside 2 minutes to the riders up front. Still a big bunch involved behind, but it's starting to become whittled down. And this is the peloton in one long line, taking brief respite on the descent from the Kemmelberg, knowing there's another climb coming up in quick succession. A little bit of a technical right-hander, but great weather conditions today, and that makes for, well, it's far from relaxed racing, but it just makes it slightly less tense.
Yes, everybody wants to race, and I just noticed that Dylan Groenewegen, the Dutch champion, was a little bit far back in that bunch, but Gaviria, Sagan, all towards the fore. It was Gianni Moscon leading the front of the peloton for Team Sky, but you know, gaps starting to appear, but with 7 to 1.9 kilometers to go, there's a lot of tired tired legs out there, and this is starting to hurt a lot of riders who start panning out. And towards the back of this peloton, it's just gaps everywhere, all in one line now, and the race is really on.
Well, that green gold for me is asking, have we missed all the echelons? I don't think so. I think there'll be a few more between now and the end of the day, especially when they come out into the open countryside. Hedge free. Moscon on the front for Team Sky. They look like they mean business. Plenty of comments on social media saying that, well, Sky haven't had a great classic season so far. It's still relatively early days. There's plenty of classics races left, but a good result, or a win, would certainly calm the nerves there, I think.
Yeah, it would. Looks as if they're up for it today. They've already been riding on the front, looking after each other. Moscon was pushing hard there. Ian Stannard was well to the fore. Luke Rowe has been riding towards the front as well. But yeah, it looks like Bora with Marcus Burkhardt wanting to keep the pressure on.
Chris Neelands of Israel Cycling Academy is chasing, and I bet you it's not the first time today he's had to close a wheel.
Well, it's all these hard efforts, and it takes its toll around these corners, and then having to sprint out and try to get on the wheel. You can see all the gaps starting to open up in front of them. There's a lot of tired bodies, and you know, we're getting well into this race, the gap coming down to 2 minutes. But the front group is about 50-60 strong, but you can see behind is another 60 odd riders all in one line trying to come back.
Rose Fraser's asking, how much is the wind affecting Gent-Wevelgem? Well, not as much as 2 years ago or even last year, but still it's a factor.
Yeah, it was a factor. It was predominantly a tailwind when we left Deinzer this morning, but then we had some crosswinds, the bunch split. But we're on this lap around the Kemmelberg, and it's going to be really interesting to see how things work out now, because we're down to only 2 riders in front. The Cofidis rider there is the man Chateau, 24-year-old Frenchman, and Preben van Heck, the 34-year-old Dutch rider, just kind of pushing out from their other breakaway riders.
Well, it's the man with the, well, are they the longest tresses in world cycling? Because Peter Sagan's had a bit of a haircut lately. The suggestion is that it might have been a bit of a Samson job, that he wasn't as strong as he might have been in E3 as a result of the haircut. He thought it was just getting too long. And now perhaps Daniel Oss, who hasn't been minded to take the shears to his mane, and he goes to the front for Team BMC. Sagan's still very much in there. Any talk of a Samson curse, I think, might be a little bit early. Defending the title, Team Lotto NL Jumbo, well, they could do with something. Looking for a result and looking to test the legs. Maybe stretch clear and change things a little bit. Counter-attack that comes at a nice time in between these two bergs. Might be just the time to try and stretch clear and give yourself a little bit of breathing space for the climb. Yeah,
Bram Tankink, and a very experienced rider. You can see him moving up. Mitch Docker goes with him for Orica Scott. A reaction now from Cofidis in the red just behind. But yeah, just as the groups are coming together, it's a good opportunity to try and get in a small breakaway. Tankink is obviously is a very experienced rider, and knows that maybe he doesn't have the legs to follow the other kind of specialists, but why not steal a bit of time? But he looks around and sees Steve Bart and the world champion there, so back to square one.
Good effort from Docker though, because he was one of the riders that came to grief early on. He was at the back, had to fight his way up to the front of the group and make sure he wasn't caught out at the back in those echelons. Finds himself at the front, so it's obviously on a good day. And what will the Orica Scott squad be looking towards? Well, they've got some good sprinting talent. Jens Kukalera knows how to find the finish line. Caleb Ewan is marked absent, a bit early for him. Roger Kluge, Luca Mesquet.
Can slip into one of those breaks, it's very good.
Well, Lotto Soudal have in their number, Jens de Buskere and Jurgen Rollens, both of whom, as I said, have finished top 6 in Gent-Wevelgem in the past. Is that where their big results are coming from?
Well, I think there's pressure on them. I don't think they've featured too well for over the last couple of days in E3 and Gent-Wevelgem. So as a one of the top Belgian teams, there's a lot of expected of them today. De Buskere was there, but I think he was halfway down the peloton. Rollens could feature today, but it's Sutherland of Movistar that was trying to distance everybody else at the front of the peloton, but it's come back together. So these are testing times for a lot of the riders. It's kind of the calm before the storm again, and there's an opportunity here in these roads for a small group to try and go down the road.
Charlie Lado's made a fairly good point, actually. He said, Sky having a bad classic season. They won Strade Bianca and Milan San Remo. So yeah, it's a good call. I think the previous tweeter was thinking more about their performance in the Northern Classics, but still, yeah. It's definitely a good period of the year for the Sky team. No Michał Kwiatkowski on duty today. He has stewed the Cobble Classics. He's looking more towards the Ardennes Classics for his success later in the classic season. Still, though, Team Sky, great opportunity this afternoon. Ian Stannard and particularly Luke Rowe on great form at the moment. So just over 67 kilometres remaining in Gent-Wevelgem. Things are building up nicely. Join us again after these. Well, they're kicking up the dust in Gent-Wevelgem because the attacks are coming as groups are starting to split. The peloton has shrunk considerably after the ascent of the Kemmelberg, the first of 2 ascents of the Kemmelberg, and now the attacks are coming out of that lead group. The peloton up front, the breakaway group up front is down to 2, chased by 4 or 5 riders, and then the peloton at just under 2 minutes in arrears. And now the attacks are starting to come out of that lead group because riders want to try and get clear before the next assault. It's coming up not too long away, the Monteberg. So it's 2 up front, then the remains of the breakaway now almost half a minute behind Loic Chatou and Preben van Hek. And then the main group, the main peloton, with 3 riders trying to race clear. Well, the attacks are coming thick and fast out of the main peloton, or what's left of the main peloton. It's a lot less than the 200 riders that left Danze earlier on today in Gent-Wevelgem for 2017. We're not satisfied with this one. Lars Bohm is here trying to get clear and trying to put himself into prime position ahead of the next climb of the day, because the peloton has, well, certainly we're getting into a situation, Brian, where it's getting very racy indeed.
Yeah, it's getting a little bit more tactical now as riders are starting to attack. With Lars Boom going on the attack for Lotto NL Jumbo, it says to me that I don't think that Dylan Groenewegen is made it to this front group, the Dutch champion. They'll be thinking of him for the sprint. Stuyven for Trek Segafredo just shutting this down. But yeah, there seems to be a bit of attacking now as start to sweep up some of the riders from the breakaway.
Well, Stuyven's a great sprinter in his own right, but of course he'll be thinking about John Degenkolb, what he's capable of doing. There's Preben van Hek and Loic Chatou with just under half a minute advantage. Frenchman and the Belgian racing in unison to try and stay out front for as long as possible. Preben van Hek had his day of days a couple of years ago, and he won the Belgian National Road Race Championship and wore those colours with pride for a full season. His career now 34 years of age. Well, he's an elder statesman, but these classic races, well, they can often suit a rider of more advanced years in cycling terms. Certainly Van Hek is not found wanting in terms of the strength that he's producing and the power that he's producing as Ryan Mullen goes to the front of the group behind. There was 8 riders, I believe, that were left in that breakaway group as they began the assault on the Kemmelberg. Preben van Hek that pushed on, and here we have the peloton behind. Alexander Kristoff getting interested now. Is that Kristoff sitting in third position here? And that would be a surprise, really. You'd imagine he'd be keeping his powder dry. Perhaps I've misidentified, because Alexander Kristoff for Team Katusha, super strong classics man, but a man who would certainly back his sprint should it come down to a group sprint on the Van Acker Straat at the conclusion of the day's activities. Down to just 1.5 minutes for the breakaway group up front. This is the third group on the road, and this is the group from which we can expect the winner to come. I wonder if there are any riders from behind that are going to be able to get back in. Well, the helicopter shot widens and shows that there is a group, but it's quite a bit smaller than the group that it's chasing. But one suspects that they'll all be united in effort to try and get back up there. It's not all done for those riders back there, but it's not good signals if they've been distanced on the Kemmelberg. Well, there'll be more riders contributing. Up front, it's more about attacking, isn't it? It's more about controlling things. It's about making sure Matteo Trentin, well, he's never off the radio, is he? Seems to act in a bit of a road captain's role, likes to get as much information as possible. Christian Canet sitting second in line. Tall, imposing figure for Team Sky. And the attacks, well, they're relentless at this moment. Anyone going to close that one down?
Yeah, we're just looking at the situation. A lot of attacks, nobody wanting to control things, and you can see Mace just coming up for Lotto Soudal, time to prize. Look, there's 62 kilometres to go, and you know, quite hard racing still, and he doesn't want to do it on his own, so he's trying to prize himself off the front of the peloton and take some riders with him. Scott Thwaites is in there for Team Dimension Data, but it's just a bit of a sticky wind at the moment, and nothing really getting away. Plenty of attacks, but nothing getting away at the moment.
Well, Peter Sagan switches from the right-hand side over to the left, and then just works his way through the group without any difficulty. When you've got the strength, you can sit in the saddle, you can take a drink while others are, well, a little bit closer to the limit. Val Bosenhagen is well in contention as well, and there aren't too many unstoried riders in this group, if that be a phrase. All of these riders have talent, strength, ambition, and huge accomplishments in world cycling. Team Sky really bossing it on the front, on the right-hand side. Bahrain Merida is are well to the fore as well on the left-hand side. Bora Hansgrohe in the centre of shot. Team Dimension Data, as I said, have two former winners of this race in their number. Bernie Eisel was getting a little bit frisky a couple of hills ago. Winner in 2010. Winner the following year was his current teammate, Edvald Bosenhagen. Bosenhagen might have been 2009. Seems years do slip away, don't they? He was a fresh-faced young thing. Maybe he hasn't quite had the career that many people might have expected, but he's still one of the top classics men. And Edvald Bosenhagen will be at the head of affairs right through close to the conclusion of this race, I suspect. 1.5 minutes now for these two racers up front. Preben van Heck and Loic Chetou have been up front since, well, the early stages of Gent-Wevelgem for 2017, initially as part of a group of 9. That was pared down to 8, and now they're the two strong men that push on and head towards the first of the dirt roads coming up very shortly. Well, we're heading for the Plugstretz on the Gent-Wevelgem for 2017. 249.2 kilometres in total for the riders today, and we're down to the final 60 kilometres, of which there are 4 kilometres on dirt roads. And this is this novel new introduction to the parcours. This is the first one. This is the longest section as well, 2.1 kilometres in length. and we'll see whether it plays a role in the destination, the overall destination of honours. Some of the team owners, directors, and indeed one or two of the riders a little bit disgruntled at the way that the organisers of world cycling, and particularly of the one-day races, are introducing more of these dirt roads into the parkour. They seem satisfied with the idea that you've got the cobbles in Paris-Roubaix and then the cobbled climbs and cobbled sections in the classics, so those races that are already established. But the idea of introducing new dirt roads seems to be a little bit controversial. They don't seem to like it.
No, I don't think as a rider you want to put yourself in any more danger. It's okay riding on a straight line in these sort of roads. It's when you have to go around some of the corners, especially in the peloton. That Quick-Step and Sky have all come towards the fore, because you really don't want to be crashing. And yeah, the peloton now whittled down to, from when we first came in here, to almost a full peloton, to about 60-70 riders now.
Select group, what will the size of it be when they get through the third section of Plugstrait? They come in quick succession. .5 kilometers, and then they make their way into the final sector at just 600 meters long. That's they'll emerge from that just over 54 kilometers remaining.
Yeah, just the motorbike in front, TV motorbike just kicking up a little bit of dust. So Trentin just saying, just give us a bit more room. It's on these corners you just have to be very vigilant. You can see all the riders just taking it very, very easy.
Yeah, sense that the big effort was to get into position for this sector, and that then they've throttled back a little bit just as they've arrived into it.
Yes, and it's just about safety. They're not racing across this tombone.
Up the road as a stalking horse, Zdenek Stybar, former world cyclocross champion, is enjoying this. The road rises, the dirt is less of a factor here. It's more the topography and the inclination of the road. Matteo Trentin has managed to get in there as well, and there are others trying to make their way across, including Quick-Step Ryan. I think that might have been Ian Stannard who's really putting the power down, trying to make the junction, ever mindful of the danger of letting riders of the calibre of Stybar and Trentin up the road. One minute and 14 seconds to the riders up front. They're of, well, reduced consequence. Poppies on the right-hand side, indicating that this is a memorial. Of 1914 to 1918. Look at the way the dust rises, and that's part of it's one of the big hazards, as you said, Brian. Motorcycle is contributing to this. He really needs to step it up a little bit on the straight bits to ensure that the riders are not piling on top of him. in one long line. The first sector, 2.1 kilometers in length. The second sector, 1.3 kilometers. And indeed, there's a war memorial to the dead of Great Britain along this sector. Second sector is called Christmas Truce. It's very close to here that they had that famous football match during the Christmas Truce in 1914. And we should see at some stage that there'll be footballs lined on either side of the road. Not too much time to enjoy the music because Matteo Trentin settles his arms over the bars and piles the pressure on and carries that group clear. Narrow advantage, but they're in the prime position, and riders trying to clip over in ones and twos. A little crack starting to develop here. Still, it's a significant size of peloton.
Yeah, there's gaps everywhere now, and they're going to open up now. The original breakaway are just about to be caught by the attacking riders from the front of the peloton, including the two quick-step riders, Trentin and Stibar.
Playing your song, Brian. Well, gulping for oxygen and getting a mouthful of dirt. It's a tough day out if you're a rider at the Varen Classic Equality Protect squad. It's Christoph Masson at the back of that group. He's had been in the break, remember. Caught and trying to hang on to the main bunch for as long as he can. Here are the first group of chasers. They're almost, well, how far down are they? They're about to be picked up, I think, by the peloton because the motorcycle's moving ahead.
Yeah, they're just about to be caught by Trentin and Stibar, so that's why they're just taking the camera bike out. It's all happening over these Plug Street gravel roads, if you can see anything at all.
Well, if you can make out the wheel in front, pick out a brake bridge, that'll do you. Christoph Masson is riding on memory, I think, at this stage. Hanging on in there as best he can. That's a select group now that has made its way clear, and this could be significant. Plenty of teams represented. When the dust does settle, both metaphorically and literally, following this sector, they'll all have a little look around to see if this is worth persevering with.
Yeah, I think so. I think Quick-Step want to persevere with this. Team Sky looks as if they're on the back foot, trying to shut this down. They do not want Trentin and Stibar to disappear up the road, especially with Van Kersbeek with them from Wongte.
Well, Trentin can sprint, so no problems for here. That's Marcus Burkhardt, former winner of this race. That's looks like a wheel. Is it a I think it's wheel actually, or was it a tyre?
Yeah, rear wheel puncture, but it's you can just see gaps absolutely everywhere. This race is full gas, and I think the organisers have put these Plug Street gravel roads in, and it's certainly making it difficult for the riders.
Memorial to the missing. The two up front, we haven't seen much of them lately. Loic Chatou in the red of Team Cofidis, the French rider, head of his Belgian cohort. That is Preben van Heck of the Sport Vlaanderen squad. And now it's Stibar and Trentin for Quick-Step that are significantly the most motivated to make this one really stick. And it's still, well, just fractions, just seconds between themselves and the riders behind. Riders are coming over in ones and twos. Or are those riders being distanced? I think it could well be the latter. And the peloton in one long line, absolutely flat chat. The battle is on now. 54 kilometers remaining up front, so these chasing group just a half a minute behind, coming towards the end of these dirt road sectors, and they certainly have played a role. It's been interesting stuff.
Yeah, I think the riders will be happy. This is the last of them. The four riders that came across, Trentin, Stibar, Van Kersbroek and Toynes of Trek Segafredo.
Christian Knaes towards the back now. He's done great work to this point in affairs. Luke Rowe, though, is struggling, and that's not good signal, and a bit of a surprise to see that. So Luke Rowe is struggling to get back into contention. And given the form that he's shown so far this year, well, it's a little bit of a surprise. I wonder if he didn't hit some sort of a difficulty through there. So Slukro finds himself trying to close this gap. And for company, he's got his teammate and a couple of others. Well, the dirt roads have been completed. We've still got a few more climbs. Riders have hit difficulties.
Christoph.
It looks like Alexander Christoph, yeah, teammate goes to the aid of his team leader, and Alexander Christoph, one of the pre-event favourites, finds himself at possibly the worst moment, having to make a wheel change because, well, it's very difficult to get service. Nice grab there, but we're more interested in the fact that, well, it's a front wheel change, so it shouldn't take too long. But Alexander Christoph having to change that front wheel himself. And he has at least the assistance of his teammate, Michael Morkov, fine sprinter himself. Both those riders, well, it'd be ideal for Katusha if both of them can get back into contention. These are the riders up front. Oh, second chasing group, yeah, it's the riders we're really focusing on. They picked up a couple of riders from the early break. Preben van Hek has gone on. Loic Chatou has been distanced. So from the early break, the last man standing is former champion of Belgium. The old dog for the hard road, the oldest man in the breakaway group, and the strongest man. Right for Antoine is the banner stretched wide across the road in memory of Antoine de Moitié. Dossard number 192 not being employed in this year's Gent-Wevelgem in memory of their fallen comrade from the race in 2016. Koen Vermeltvort of the Team Rompot squad is grovelling at the back. But they've mopped up a couple of riders from the early break. Whether those riders will be able to make a contribution, one would suspect they won't, but if they can, it certainly would be a nice boost for these riders up front.
They're not hanging about behind as well. They don't want Quick Step to have too many options in front, and you just see Wanty have lost one of the riders from the front group, and that's Mark McNally. He's just about to be picked up by the peloton. So the peloton behind are chasing hard. They do not want these riders to disappear down the road.
Here comes Loic Chatou, distanced by Preben van Hek. Well, he'll just slot in at the back. He's done his duty. Or will he? Will he be minded to make a contribution? It's balancing on a knife edge here. They've made a significant gap of 20 seconds, but it's a long way from being definitive in any sense. It's a long way from the line. Still over 50 kilometers remaining. And no sense that they're going to let them off the leash here. Nothing is being let clear. Everything is being chased down. This one is about strength. $50 kilometers remaining. Preben van Hek is clear of the field, but not for a whole lot longer. He's just over 20 seconds advantage now, and I can tell you that counter-attacking group has just this minute been closed down by the main bunch. So one major threat has been eliminated. And those riders will go back into the pack, think about what they've done, and no doubt come out fighting again, not too far along the line. Peter Sagan playing the waiting game. That's a great shot, isn't it? Heat haze over the roads in Gent-Wevelgem. It's not something we've encountered in recent years. But welcome development for Preben van Hek and for all the riders in this year's race, because well, they like a sunny one every now and again. Indeed, the weather's been great this week. That's a frightening sight, isn't it? You look around and you see 60, 70 guys absolutely flat chat, bearing down on you. Well, if anything, his gap has increased in the last few months. That's the man out front. It's just under 50 kilometers remaining in Gent-Wevelgem for 2017. Preben van Hek has a narrow advantage, 24 seconds over the BMC-led peloton. That counter-attack of the couple of riders from Quick Step Floors and a few others, well, that's been called to account. Zdeněk Stybar Mario Trentin et al. Have been drawn back into the fold. That one didn't work out. The Plugstrait, the dirt roads, they played their part, but they haven't played a defining role. Well, that's the entire peloton, so it's by no means a huge squad.
We're doing great. We're doing a fantastic race. So be honest with each other, talk to each other. We have to be there all the time. When the favorite teams they go, we have to have always someone there. Good job so far.
So it's the same message from Dirk de Mol. Keep in touch with each other and stay in contact. Maxime Vantom from Veren Classic Equality Protect. Rear wheel change. Solid effort, but will he be able to get back in? Because that peloton, well, they had a hell of a scrap to chase down that little counter-attacking group. If anything, though, they might have stalled a little bit, so that might be good news for Vantom. He might have just a little window to get back into contention before the next real issue. Well, there are some hills along the way, but the next one that's charted on our road book is the Banneberg. Second time up the Banneberg, second and final time, and it's the penultimate climb, and it will be reached with 38.9 kilometers remaining according to the road book, if that can be trusted. And not too far after that, well, no more than 4 kilometers after that, we've got the Kemmelberg final assault, and that's the final climb of the day. So those two climbs come in quick succession, and that'll be the final opportunity for riders, I think, who have designs on a solo victory to really, split the group and whittle it down to a small group from which they can then race on to glory. Otherwise, it could well be for the sprinters. So there are still opportunities, still banana skins. And listening to Dirk de Mol, well, it's all eyes for them, of course, on Gent-Wevelgem. It's about trying to keep it contained, keep it compact, keep it together. Although he's not afraid of going on the attack himself, and indeed so many of these fast sprinters are of a mind to get into a small group because it's easier to sprint from a small one than a big one. But I suppose it's about playing your cards in exactly the right way.
That's all you can do. He's trying to get it across to them that any attacks go, they have to have riders there, at least one rider. They had Toynes there in the previous attack, so everything's going well. They've got some numbers in this front group. They're not really worried about Van Heck at the moment. He's alone. He's been in the breakaway all day, 30 seconds down the road. But BMC had a very hard chase there to shut that attack down. And now they're continuing the effort, which means to me that Greg van Avermaet has recovered well. He's on some good form, and I suspect that Greg van Avermaet is going to go on the attack very shortly.
Van Avermaet can sprint. He can sprint from a fairly big group, but he'd certainly be wary of the sprinting talent that's in there right now.
He wants to come to the finish like the other day with only a handful of riders. He wants to go on the attack. He looks good, and BMC are riding on the front to look after him.
Going well for him and for so many others at the moment. 46k to go. Take a quick break. Back after these. Well, there's the main bunch. Just one rider up front. Preben van Heck is the last man standing from the 9-man breakaway group that left early on in Gent-Wevelgem for 2017. The main bunch behind, just under half a minute in arrears. Things are being controlled. Team Cannondale have managed to get control at the front. Team Dimension Data are putting riders into position. Team BMC, that suggests that the teams want to try and put manners on this one. Not too far away to the Banneberg. And how dearly Preben van Heck would love to get up and over it before the bunch arrive. Not so sure he's going to make it. But you can be sure that the Sport Vlaanderen director will be giving him that suggestion. Stay pushing for as hard and as long as you possibly can. Been a great day out for him. Superb performance. And really showed the colours with pride and with no little ability. Well, there is the lone leader, Preben van Heck, out front in the final 45 kilometres of Gent-Wevelgem for 2017. As the bunch behind are chasing. Well, what are Katusha Alpecin saying about their situation?
Come. 20 seconds! Allez!
They're stopping alone. Come, Alex.
So it's the big cheer for...
Crash at the back.
Oh, and riders down. And you can tell that the pressure was on because a lot of riders have come to grief there. Lots of teams involved. Katusha, is that Tony Martin? It's certainly a Katusha rider on the right-hand side of the road. BMC, Bahrain Merida. Auto NL Jumbo involved in that one as well. Indeed it is. And Tony Martin has had his difficulties this year, hasn't he, with crashes? Crashed in, was it Omloop or Kuurne Brussels Kuurne? I'm trying to remember which of the two. Just ended up getting flicked on the right-hand side, and Team Sky as well. Find Johnny Moscon. Moscon had been doing solid work. So this is the inevitable result of the sort of pressure that suddenly goes on at the front of the peloton. Maximum intensity. 43 kilometres remaining. They're closing down Preben van Heck and they're trying to get in position. Let's have a look at this on the right-hand side, Brian.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it. It's just a touch of wheels. It's just some riders were trying to move up on the right-hand side. The riders get squeezed and a touch of wheels just at the wrong time. We're going to see it from the back. Oof. It's just this is bike racing, this is what happens, and unfortunately Tony Martin is down again, Moscon down. When we were watching that in the replay, we also saw this man here, Christoph. He's within touching distance of the convoy in front. If he gets to the convoy, then he's got an opportunity, but what's, I think, going to put the nail in his coffin today is I think Greg van Avermaet is going to start attacking on this next climb, and I don't know if it's possible that Christoph is able to come back to the front of the race.
So that was the moment that Katusha Alpecin discovered that they'd lost one of their strongest riders, a rider who would have been, well, ideal to maybe bring Christoph that last little bit back, but Tony Martin's on the deck. Christoph has flashed past. He's trying to make the junction, and he is using lots of matches to get back into contention. So it hasn't been the ideal start of the Classic season for Alexander Christoph. Sprinting well, but it hasn't all quite just pieced together nicely for a man who dominated the Classics a couple of seasons ago. And can he get back to those glorious heights? Well, he has not given up this one yet. Any sign of a stall up front, and Alexander Christoph will close that 17-second gap. They hit the next climb of the day. Daniel Oss is there for Team BMC, trying to organise things, get Greg van Avermaet into prime position. And Greg van Avermaet, as you said, well, BMC would go on the attack. First one to do it for them is Daniel Oss. Yeah, I just want to stretch it out a little bit to make it harder, just try and kind of soften the group up for Greg van Avermaet to have a go. But you can just see that, you know, in the space of only a few kilometres, with a Christoph punctured Tony Martin crash, disappointment in the Katusha car because they had two strong options in the front group, but unfortunately for them, it wasn't the case, as Peres Sagan dives up the inside there. Yeah, way to make yourself popular. Work did it perfectly there, didn't he? Down the inside, the world champion, peerless bike handling skills. Is that Bonin he's bringing with him? Certainly one of the quick step riders sitting on his wheel. And no harm, no foul, so Sagan is in good position. He has sat a little bit further back in the group than you might have expected him to do. Preben van Heck is up and over the Bannerberg, so that's a huge relief to him. He's managed to survive for a little while longer. 41 kilometres remaining, still a big group up front, and we wait with interest to hear whether Alexander Christoph has made it back in, whether he's going to make it in. We'd love to see. And there was there's a lot of daylight, wasn't there, between Christoph and the back of that group. There was no cavalcade to offer shelter and to give him an opportunity to get back in without using up lots and lots of effort. Van Heck, 41 kilometres left, and apologies, the Bannerberg still awaits. And then the Kemmelberg. BMC it is, I believe, pushing hard. As much as anything, they're keeping their own riders in prime position, and it has the added bonus of making it more difficult for Alexander Kristoff. So it's an obvious tactic. So Preben van Heck got up over that climb, but the Bannenberg still is lying in front of him, and in front of that is the Kemmelberg. So his days at the front, well, numbered in just seconds now. Numbered in 0. 25 miles of bike racing left for the Sport Vlaanderen man and everyone else involved in Gent-Wevelgem. Another right turn, riders piling down in, just trying to gain every little advantage they possibly can, and that's where it's a war, isn't it? That's where, you know, riders will do just about anything to try and get themselves into position.
Yes, we're over 200 kilometres mark. 249 at the start of today's stage, just under 40 kilometres left, 25 miles. So there's tired legs, and everybody was pushing and shoving and trying to get position. They've got position, so they're trying to save a little bit of energy. They know what's coming now. Most of the riders there, they don't really have to kind of push and shove too much, but they know that something's going to happen in the Bannenberg, the next climb, and then on to the Kemmelberg. So yeah, it's just the calm before these next two climbs, as everybody's already pushed hard to get to the front. You can just see one of the most experienced and former winner, Bernie Iso, on the right hand side for Team Dimension Data. So they'll know when they have to be at the front, and it's now, because there's going to be attacks in this next climb.
Suggestions that Peter Sagan may have been held up in that crash. Alexander Kristoff has managed to get up to the cavalcade now, so it's not beyond the bounds of possibility that he's going to make it. Van Heck is closed down. It's been a long time out front. Well, it must be getting on for 200 kilometres of racing, initially in a breakaway group of 9, and then that whittled down by degrees to make him just the lone lion of Flanders as the flag flutters in the breeze. It's a relatively gentle breeze, so hasn't been quite as big an influence. There have been echelons today, though, and Kristoff finds himself in the cars, and this could be a tricky moment because there are so many delays and little stalls at the back of the group that can cause all sorts of difficulty. Let's hope that, for his sake at least, that Alexander Kristoff won't be delayed in any sense there. I think Kristoff is safely in there, and that's a hell of an effort.
I'm not too sure if he's made it back, because there's a few cars behind the peloton, and there's a bit of a gap, but I think if he does make it, and this is the only time he's going to have a chance to be able to do that, because I reckon there's going to be attacks in the next couple of kilometres, and if he gets to the back, it's going to be very difficult for him.
Well, it hasn't worked out for Lars Bohm, who's on the attack not so long ago, but that's called blowing your lights, isn't it?
And this is what Tony Martin's got to contend with as well, because you know, riders are starting to get dropped, there's gaps starting to appear, and it's difficult. But Daniel Wass again going on the attack for BNC. We're expecting these attacks in the Bannenberg, and we're still waiting for Greg van Avermaet to show, but they're trying to put a satellite rider in front now.
Well, Greg van Avermaet can join Jan Raas as the only rider to win the Omloop, at Nussblad as it's called these days. The E3 Harold Beck and Gent-Wevelgem in the same year, should he manage to take victory. He's got a teammate who's on the attack in the shape of Daniel Oss, himself a very accomplished classics man, as indeed he'd have to be on the attack at this stage, with over 200 kilometres raced. Well, that one hasn't carried himself clear, but he's in prime position. And a little bit of daylight starting to develop between first 4 or 5 and the rest of the main group.
Looks like it was Scott Thwaites bringing him back there, but just behind Thwaites was Greg van Avermaet, and on Greg van Avermaet's wheel was Edwald Bosenhagen, a former winner of this race as well.
Well, Scott Thwaites has stepped up to the World Tour with the Dimension Data squad this year. And looks as if he's really enjoying the experience. This sort of racing, he's built for it, he's made for it. And that's a fine performance from Thwaites to get into that little split there. And there's several teams involved here, so this is critical little moment. The riders trying to come over in ones and twos, a little bit of cooperation here, and they could be clear.
Yeah, it's a good select group. Just trying to figure out who's there. And yeah, Edvard Boasson-Hagen, Greg van Avermaet, I think John Degenkolb was also there. This is the kind of main peloton, but Greg van Avermaet definitely in this front group. And Trentin is also there again. So it's just softening every other team up. But the strong riders are starting to come towards the front now.
Ishiras Osagan in there as well, so he's negotiated a path to the front without any apparent difficulty. I'm sure it was more difficult than it looked, but still, the facility with which he negotiates the bunch, the sheer, well, class in terms of his bike handling and indeed the power that he can develop, well, what a combination. Os gets the food on board. There might be much time to eat because Scott Thwaites wants to keep the hammer down. Has he got the call, or does he sense? Well, Edvald Boasson-Hagen's safely in there, so he'll be aware that his team leader is in nice position, and he wants to keep him in that position, so keep pushing hard. Dennis van Winden from the Israel Cycling Academy, just in front of him, Juraj Sagan. His more accomplished brother Peter is safely in this group. And Daniel Os looks like he's on a good day. It doesn't seem to be particularly difficult for him to move to the front, stay on the front, attack, spend some time off the front. Will he close gaps? Looks like Stuyven. John Degenkolb has sent one of his strongest riders on the attack. Nice opportunity for Stuyven.
A very good opportunity there for Trek Segafredo, taking with him Yves Lampaert, who won Dwardor Vlaanderen, and they won't want, especially BMC, but they will not want these two riders to go down the road, but it's Team Dimension Data that take up the chase at the front of the peloton.
Well, Stuyven really announced himself a year ago. Was it Corn that he went clear in the closing stages? Surprised everyone by staying away solo. He's a good sprinter as well. He's capable of sprinting from quite a big group, but he managed to solo home for a victory that established himself as a classics man of some talent and great promise.
Yeah, Bernie Eisel realises this is a danger. Stuyven and the quick-step rider that won Dwardor Vlaanderen another day, Yves Lampaert, it's not a duo you really want to be disappearing down the road. So Bernie Eisel driving the front of the peloton.
Bernie Eisel, the victor of this race in 2010, not thinking about his own ambitions this afternoon, though. The one and only Austrian victor in Gent-Wevelgem would like to help one of just two Norwegian winners of this race, Edvald Boasson-Hagen. That's the man he's looking after. Bernie Eisel in that familiar role of riding on the front, driving it along, setting a tempo that few can match. And that's, well, that's looked like a nice handy little gap that Jesper Stuyven and Yves Lampaert managed to open out, but it didn't last for long, did it? A lot of riders still relatively fresh in there, despite the, 200 odd kilometres that they have in their legs at this point.
Job done for Bernie Eisel. He's closed Stuyven and Lampaert down there. Strong effort, but that effort has made that he ran out of legs for the day and his job is done. So it's Scott Thwaites now looking after Boasson-Hagen. Behind Boasson-Hagen, you've got Trentin, Stibar, Van Avermaet. They're all just queuing up, waiting for the Kemmelberg.
That's the thing about pros, isn't it? So many of them look absolutely fine, and it's only when the wheels come off and they really start to struggle that suddenly you go, oh, I had no idea that he was really close to the limit. But Bernie Eisel got every last joule of energy out of it and closed a dangerous one down. He's put another teammate and got another teammate to take things on as they head up the next climb. Scott Thwaites What a moment for him. And he's got his teammate and team leader in second position, in prime position, ready, willing to fend off any attacks. And they're going to come, and they're going to come from BMC. So Edvald Boasson-Hagen has to be ready for this one. Has he got the legs?
Van Avermaet goes, Degenkolb tries to go with him. Edvald Boasson-Hagen right on it, but Greg Van Avermaet went as soon as we hit the cobbles.
Greg Van Avermaet is stretching this one out. John Degenkolb shows himself equal to the task so far, but a little bit of daylight developing between Greg Van Avermaet and John Degenkolb behind. Here comes Sagan on the left-hand side, the middle of the road less travelled, you might call. Closes the gap, but will he get to Greg Van Avermaet in time? And they are the class of the field. Greg Van Avermaet, followed by Peter Sagan, followed by John Degenkolb. And the last two winners of this race in the first three positions across the top of the final climb. And that was a little look behind for Peter Sagan to see what damage has been done. Plenty, but isn't enough. And Degenkolb hasn't quite got there yet.
I tell you, that looked very easy for Peter Sagan. Greg Van Avermaet just went full gas right from the bottom of the climb as soon as we had the cobbles. But Sagan had to make up a few bike lengths, came past everybody, and has made it across to Greg Van Avermaet. So now we have a Quick Step on the back foot.
Yeah, the team Quick Step, which looked so strong throughout the afternoon. They've got strength in numbers towards the front, but they're not on the front, and they're not where Greg Van Avermaet and Peter Sagan are right now. So it is the team with the greatest numbers and you would say the greatest strength behind are going to have to combine their forces. At the moment they're very much in one long line, as they will be through to the conclusion of this descent, and then they'll settle down and have a little discussion about how they're going to get organised. The yellow flag flies as if to say you've got to make a left turn here. Well, Peter Sagan and Greg Van Avermaet combined forces. This could be very interesting indeed, and Degenkolb has moments to get back in here, I think.
Yeah, and just look behind two Quick Steps with Edvald Boasson-Hagen, but I also saw, I think, Gaviria in the group behind, so they've still got plenty of options. Even I think it will still come back together, but Quick Step will have to think if they want it to come down to a sprint, then they've got one of the fastest finishers in the group behind.
Sagan has a little look behind and sees they've still got daylight to a chasing group of what, 3 or 4 riders, and it has a couple of Quick Steps in there, so the Quick Step squad have... But that is no doubt about it, absolutely top group has managed. Nicky Terpstra, former Paris-Roubaix winner, and that is a select group clear in Gent-Wevelgem. 32 kilometres remaining in Gent-Wevelgem. The UCI World Tour brewing up nicely as they've got 6 riders clear. The counter-attacking group has, what, 7 riders? Looks like Nason is one of them. Just had a question on social media asking if he was still involved. I do believe that's him in there, but he's got to get his skates on if he's going to be involved through to the end of this race. Indeed, involved for the battle for over. So these riders have to put the hammer down if they're to stay clear. John Degenkolb here in the red of Trek makes way for Zdenek Stybar of Quick Step, and that the long shot tells you, and that's a great shot, isn't it? Just shows you what the state of affairs is at the moment.
Yeah, big panic in the groups behind, so you get 6 riders in front in the group of about 8 or 10 trying to come across, and including in that is Trentin. Scott Thwaites is also there, but a danger man is in that second group is the Bahrain Merida rider, Sonny Colbrelli.
Colbrelli's on fine form, isn't he? He had a monster ride in E3 a couple of days ago. Sagan goes to the front and has
but he normally rides like a motorbike anyway, so it does look as if that group is slowly coming back to the 6 in front.
Well, should that group come back, what's that going to do to the dynamics of the group, and will it allow the other ones to come up from behind, or will it provide further impetus, further legs?
Well, Trentin's already riding, so is Scott Thwaites. It's important for them. Now the pressure is on the group behind, and I'm not too sure if the group behind, Michael Matthews has also made it across for Sunweb. So these are strong riders, and if they combine together, they could go all the way. It depends on who's missed out, but definitely 3 quick steps there. I think they have got Gaviria behind, but it looks as if they want to ride. But they have to start doing something soon, because this gap could decrease as we pan back now. It's a large enough gap with no really concerted efforts, and the strong riders are all in front. It looks like Lotto Soudal have missed out in this one yet again.
Well, Lotto Soudal, there's no time for a conversation. They've got to get their skates on. 16 seconds they're showing, and it's rising by the minute, or by the second. With every second, as Lotto Soudal put another rider on the front. There can be no waiting, as Ian Stannard as well recognises that Team Sky have missed out. Team Dimension Data put 3 riders into that group up front, including their sprinter Edvald Boasson-Hagen. So to the Quick Step squad have 3 riders, but they've got their best sprinter languishing behind Fernando Gaviria. They've got options, but they, well, I suspect would be of a mind to persevere and press on with their numerical advantage up front. And for these riders up front to press on. This is the select group, includes the world champion, includes the defending champion at the back of the group in the white with the rainbow stripes, the established star of world cycling, Peter Sagan, having a little look around to see what the gap was like. It's not a done deal by any means, is it? They've got to press on, and there's still 30 kilometers remaining. Sonny Colbrelli, as you mentioned, Brian, has managed to get in there. He's a fine sprinter. Big, burly Italian. Big, burly sprinter, the Italian rider, Colbrelli, and he's really made for this classics racing. On the left-hand side of shot, Scott Thwaites of Great Britain. 4 Dimension Data. Greg van Avermaet. John Degenkolb. Oliver Nason. Superb 3rd place finish for him a couple of days ago in E3. Harold Becca. Defining performance for him, probably his best performance in cycling at this point as a professional rider. Well, the Sunwebs have missed out. And they're in the, they're in the front, so they've got 2 riders, including Matthews, as you called. Yeah, Matthews sitting second in line. Great ride by Michael Matthews to get into this. What sprinting ability is in here. There's lots of riders that would bet on their sprint. Likes of Michael Matthews, Greg van Avermaet. Well, Greg van Avermaet's a good sprinter, but he might be getting a bit nervous seeing riders of the quality of Degenkolb, Matthews, Colbrelli, Sagan, Boasson-Hagen as well. And indeed, of these sprinters, several, should they survive to the line, several of them would be thinking, well, I've got to get clear. Plenty of racing still in this one.
Yeah, Kukalair also made it for Orica Scott. I'm just trying to see what's happening behind. It looks as if there's a couple of riders being distanced, but...
Come on, close the gap. Come on.
Yeah, just about to say that all pressure now on the other World Tour team in Belgium, and that's Lotto Soudal in the red.
27 kilometres remaining. Select group out front. Will they hang on? We're going to find out after this quick commercial break. Come back to us after these. Well, this gap is growing because it's over 30 seconds now, over half a minute. That's the British military cemetery, and another one of the military cemeteries that pepper the countryside. Across the route and the parkour of Gent-Wevelgem. Gent-Wevelgem in Flanders fields, as it is now known. We're at the busy end, down to the last 25 kilometres. Still a long way to go, but the gap is going up. It's 34 seconds with Colbrelli for Bahrain Merida, making way for another sprinter, John Degenkolb, Greg van Avermaet. What about Scott Thwaites? He's absolutely flying today. Well, Team Sunweb have a couple of representatives, most notably Michael Matthews, Søren Kragh Andersen there as well. Well, we're down to the final 25 kilometres of Gent-Wevelgem for 2017. This is the select group up front. One wonders if they're coming back. It's up to 34 seconds. They've gained about 10 seconds within the last couple of kilometres, so it's going well. And the group behind really haven't got themselves organised. Just one or two teams chasing, whereas all these riders, as we float close to Ypres, all of these riders are pretty much contributing. So total accord between a group absolutely chock full of sprinting talent. Well, the teams with the numbers, Team Sunweb have Michael Matthews, and he's got Søren Kragh Andersen to look after him. Bora Hanstra, well, Peter Sagan has no problems flying solo when it's required. Jens Kukkelaer is flying solo as well for Orica Scott, and he's got a handy finish on him as well, so a good result is in the offing for the Orica Scott team. Still, they've got to put it together. Matteo Trentin, just saw him flashing through shot. The Italian rider with the Quick Step Floors team in the blue colours is a fine finisher in his own right. He can go for a long one. Wouldn't by any means be the top sprinter here, but he has won big bunch sprints in the past. So Quick Step Floors have something to bet on for the sprint. I suspect they might also be minded to put riders up the road as well. They've got Zdenek Stibar, himself a pretty quick finisher, but I don't think he goes looking for the sprints as often anymore. And Nicky Terpstra is there as well, capable of going long. And Team Dimension Data, they've got three riders in there. They've got Edvald Boasson-Hagen and Scott Thwaites, maybe just two at this moment. But Boasson-Hagen has a very strong pair of legs and lungs in the shape of Scott Thwaites to look after his interests and perhaps defend his hopes close to the finish. Well, we've a long way to go to that finish, but I'm already starting to speculate that this group is going to stay clear. But at the moment, well, the gap is hovering. If anything, it's come down a couple of seconds. It's make or break time.
Yeah, it's in the balance. There's two teams riding behind, and that's Lotto Soudal and Wanty Group Gouvert. So that means Van Kersbroek and De Buschere are in this group behind. But the longer this chase goes on, if they don't close this gap, then I'm afraid they're going to run out of legs. It is predominantly a headwind all the way in towards the finish. So if these 14 riders in front continue to ride and help each other, we just noticed that Peter Sagan, the world champion, is kind of hovering around the back of this group. He put a big effort in. He's probably looked around the group and saw there's a lot of very good sprinters. So he's kind of saving his energy a little bit. So is Boasson-Hagen. Trentin would be another favourite. They've Quick Step have got three riders in here and have the dominant numbers. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. 28 seconds. They've got to shut this down sooner rather than later. Otherwise, they're going to run out of legs in the chase behind.
Well, they can't afford to ease up. Every single rider needs to contribute because it's like a virus, isn't it? Once one sits on, then another one. And I mean, if Sagan decides to sit on for a while, try and recoup his efforts to go again, that could spell the death knell for the group. See Boasson-Hagen at the back as they went through that switchback sector, but they really, you know, they do need to get every rider up the front. We've seen Degenkolb contributing, we've seen Matthews, we've seen, you know, great sprinters riding through, and I think that's still required for quite a while to make sure of making this one happen.
The thing is, they've already made a big effort to get in that group of 14, and it's a lot easier to sprint in the group of 14 than it is to sprint in a group of maybe 40 or 50. So they'll want to try and push on. They'll know the gap's coming down. Nason is there for AG2R, and he's there alone. We know he's got some good form, but they have to get organised, because they're looking around and they'll see that the chase has been done by the riders in the red. There's two teams in the red, one's Cofidis, one's Lotto Soudal, and Wanty Group Gobert.
And you'd be worried about them at the moment, wouldn't you? Because a little bit of looking around, the road rises ever so slightly. It's Cuculaire that has decided to just step it up a little bit and put the cat among the pigeons. Does he want to perhaps press on, and understanding that they weren't really putting enough of an effort in, or is this a full-blooded attack to split the group? Well, Cuculaire is a good sprinter, but he'd be certainly nervous of the ability of some of the riders that are in there. What's that going to do to the cooperation in this group? Because there could well be, the accord could well be completed at this moment.
Michael Matthews just swings over there and lets the gap go, and some of these riders may get caught out, but Colbrelli comes round the top and tries to go across, but there's no cohesion in this front group. Still a lot of motorbikes in this gap of 24 seconds, so I'd be trying to clear as many of them out as possible and not aid in the chase, because this is a really important part of this race today.
It's shrinking fast, so they need to keep the hammer down. It's only the sustained attacks of Jens Cuculaire. Got Greg van Avermaet for company. And Peter Sagan trying to go across this one. If he makes it, well, that could be significant. Van Avermaet goes to the front. And behind, well, it's frustration. And Scott Thwaites has gone to the front here to look after Edvald Boasson Hagen, but they need the help and support of some other riders if they're going to make the junction. It's an interesting moment, isn't it? And Cuculaire that kicked it off, and it looks like it might have been the right thing to do.
Yeah, just a lot of riders looking behind, not willing to commit, and maybe the group is just too strong, and the riders in it were just too strong, and nobody wanted to help each other. No cohesion.
Oh, what a day out we've had in Flanders as we reach the final 20 kilometres. The big peloton over 11 climbs, and the dirt roads from the plug straight. Well, it has been whittled down to a group of no more than 40 that are contesting the victory. And the situation is we've got 4 or 5 up front. We've got a chase group of about 7 or 8, and behind them by no more than 15 seconds you have the what's left of the main peloton. Scott Thwaites did a big turn on the front, and then the attack came from behind him, and suddenly finds himself having to close the gap. Likes to ride a big gear, and he manages to roll back up onto the tail.
Boasson Hagen has just clipped off. He's trying to go across the gap to the leading group as well now.
And Thwaites had set that up to a certain extent, hadn't he?
Well, he knew he had to go. Scott tried to go across, tried to shut it down. He wasn't able to do so for his team leader, Edvald Boasson Hagen. Michael Matthews is wanting the group behind to do some turns, and you can just see in the distance it's going out again. So strong riding and intelligent move there by Cuculaire. He manages to get in the front group. So you've got Terpstra, Cuculaire, Soren Kragh Andersen, Greg van Avermaet, and Peter Sagan.
Yeah, superb move from Cuculaire, because he's now gone from maybe 5th or 6th favourite to a second favourite in this, second, third favourite in the sprint, assuming it comes down to a 5-man sprint. But this is by no means decided. I'm thinking about the finish line. It's a long way to go. 20 kilometres left. You've got the whole bike race in one shot, and 3 or 4 groups on the road. So it's absolutely fabulous stuff, and they are knocking spots off each other, trying to get into position. So the springboard for Edvald Boasson Hagen didn't prove to be of great value to him. It's Bettiol, I think, for the Cannondale squad that's managed to get himself into position. But they've still got to close down that gap. They're saying it's 17 seconds as Greg van Avermaet goes to the front. The Olympic champion on fine form makes way for Jens Cuculaire. Next up will be Soren Kragh Andersen, the Norwegian, riding with Team Sunweb. Peter Sagan is in there, so too is Nicky Terpstra in the blue of Team Quickstep. He's got teammates behind, Matteo Trentin and Zdenek Stybar, and they'll play a watching brief. They'll bet on Terpstra. For all that, though, of these riders, Terpstra is not the strongest of the sprinters.
No, maybe not, but after a hard day in the saddle like today, it comes down to who's got enough in the legs. He's done a turn at the front now, but I think he will be thinking of, if they do stay away, trying to distance himself from the likes of Sagan, who's definitely the fastest of the riders in front. These riders behind just have to get organised. The gap creeping out a little bit. They got very close there, but doesn't look as if they want to help each other.
Yeah, Nassen gets to Bosenhagen, and then the throttle comes off. Matthews won't chase. He's got a teammate up front. Quick-step riders will bet on Terpstra, so they're not going to chase. So it's up to Colbrelli. It's up to Bettiol. These riders are gulping down the energy drinks. They're getting the gels in. To be honest, a lot of these riders will really be struggling at this point, and for all that they want to and know that the ideal thing is to go up there and contribute or attack and try and get across it, the legs may not just be there to do it.
Like you see Edvard Bosenhagen talking to John Degenkolb, and the question now for in the team cars, and I'd love to go back and hear what they're saying. It looks as if these riders in front, the 5 riders in front, I don't think the group behind have got it in the legs to come across to them. But what do? Do they sit up and wait for the reinforcements behind, which is going to bring other teams into play? Because Trek will have to ride, do a lot more riding. So I think the big question for the sports directors now is, okay, if we can't go to the front of these 5 riders, then we may as well sit up, wait for the
call for the troops.
Yeah. Get more reinforcements. There's still 17 kilometres to go, and then we could ride into Wevelgem and hopefully bring it back. So it's still in the balance. It could still be a fairly large bunch sprint. Yes,
just 41 seconds back to that big group behind, and if they mop up all the riders, well, that is a significant sized group, as Michael Matthews and Sonny Colbrelli, riders that are used to having other riders do the chasing for them. Edvald Bosenhagen rides to the front. Naesen finds himself in a chasing position. A few days ago, he was the man up front.
Yeah, hot behind the collar at the moment. It's don't give it up, and they won't give it up. This gap coming down all the time to this group, to the peloton behind. They need to look behind and see them coming, because I think if they join forces, there's still a possibility that these 5 riders can be brought back.
Yeah, well, I think that is, there's every chance it will come back. It looks as if the peloton are going to get, well, they're certainly closer to the first chasing group than that chasing group is to this group of riders up front. Look at the pain etched on Greg Van Avermaet's face. So much of what he's done today has looked effortless, but now it's absolutely, oh, look at that.
Yeah, there's passengers now.
Bit of dead wood.
Terpstra's not going to ride. Søren Kragh Andersen has been told don't ride now. And now Kukkeler and Greg Van Avermaet are the only riders prepared to push on now. So it does look as if the calls are coming from the team car. Just sit up, and we could see an actual bunch sprint in this year's edition.
Well, that's brave stuff from Peter Sagan, isn't it? We've seen him in the past where he's used maybe too much energy, been too willing, but these days he seems to have achieved a nirvana of confidence and serene cool, and he's willing to actually just say, I don't care, I'm willing to take the risk.
Yeah, I won it last year, I'm the world champion, but I'm not going to drag you guys to the finish, but it'd be interesting to see the peloton. I do believe that Gaviria is there for Quick-Step, and that's the reason why Terpstra had started to miss a couple of turns.
Well, Kragh Andersen has decided that this is a big opportunity for him to score a top result in a big Northern Classic, so he gives a big turn. Well, Greg Van Avermaet has not missed a turn since this move began. He wants it to succeed. He only knows one way, and that's attack, and get to the front. Meanwhile, Nicky Terpstra takes a couple of riders out the back, not least of which is Peter Sagan. Sagan's going to lead them there. He's going to try and jump across this one. He may have just taken a bit too much of a risk, but he doesn't want to bring the Paris-Roubaix winner, former Paris-Roubaix winner Nicky Terpstra or Søren Kragh Andersen with him, so he's put a bit of daylight between them. Will he be able to skip across the gap? Just how easy he finds it to get across the gap is going to tell us a lot. If he makes it across the gap, well, how many matches will he burn? But it looks as if Terpstra is getting back into contention here, and this is a monster show of strength by Nicky Terpstra.
It is, and he's just about got him, but he's hurt them. Sagan's attack was phenomenal there, and it takes the former Paris-Roubaix winner all his strength to get back onto his wheel.
Well, Sagan will have to finish that one off, will he? Or will Terpstra be minded to? He didn't want to get back on the pedals, but he does it anyway. He closed the gap to Sagan with surprising ease, and it looks as if they could well get back up to them with just that big effort. Will Craig Anderson have the legs to do it? I think he was Big Goose just managing to hang on to Terpstra there. So it's Sagan that goes again, and he's flicking the elbows, but then drapes the forearms across the handlebars as if to say, settle into his work, settle into the pain and suffering of closing this gap. Another man suffering is Greg Van Avermaet, hanging on to a narrow advantage. So they might just have been playing it a bit too cool there, because Van Avermaet is not going to make it easy for them.
Yep, they're riding behind now. There's a bit of cooperation. They're trying to come back to Greg Van Avermaet and Kukelair in front. The gap pushing out a little bit to 55 seconds. They need to get organised, but it is predominantly a headwind all the way in towards the finish, so there's still possibilities if they combine their efforts behind in the peloton for it to be a bunch finish.
Well, it's a long way to go. And the peloton stretched thin, suggesting that they haven't packed it in yet. The wind blows, and it's like a bit of a headwind for them. Headwind and crosswind, so the wind is not really in the favour of the riders out front, hanging on to that 8-second advantage now over the Peter Sagan-led group of 3. And if Sagan doesn't get to the finish in the front group, he'll be a bit miffed.
To say the least. He didn't want to ride, took the opportunity, but these 3 riders, they want to get back to Greg Van Avermaet and Kukelair. It's, you know, they're going to get screaming in their ear from the sports directors. They put themselves in this situation. What they're trying to do is negate the 2 riders in front by being there and doing nothing.
Ga toe, Nicky, kom on! Kom op, Nicky, vol meerijden voor dat gat eerst terug te dichten, kom op. Vol meerijden voor dat gat terug te dichten. Wat er niemand op de weg rijden, jongens.
Yeah, sense of mounting frustration with Quick-Step. They had all the numbers, didn't they, when things split initially. Got themselves into the lead move of 5. And then, for no obvious reason, really, just a little bit of tactical manoeuvring, Nicky Terpstra finds himself out the back and now having to change with the chase, with Søren Kragh going to the front, giving a bit of a turn, but not able to do the sustained turns that Nicky Terpstra and more particularly Peter Sagan are capable of putting in. Still, it's a great effort.
This gap creeping up again, 14 seconds. It's looking doubtful unless they're soft pedaling, and I don't think they are. I think they're going full gas. You can hear the Quick-Step car calling for Terpstra to keep the pressure on to make it to the front. But be interesting to see what the gap is back to the peloton now, because there'll be about 4 or 5 teams now drilling it, trying to bring everybody back.
Well, it's 2 Belgian riders up front, chased by a Slovak, a Norwegian, and a rider from the Netherlands. Only 1 Belgian rider has won this race in the last 11 years, and that's Tom Bonen. He's in the group further back, I do believe. May or may not be, I'm not sure, but certainly Tom Bonen has been involved in the action today. Took the victory last in 2012, so it's actually been a while since there's been a Belgian success. Chasing group. That's the side. And those riders up front are starting to get just a little bit smaller. And the world champion finds himself just taking shelter there for a moment. Getting much shelter off a Mini, even one of the modern Minis. Terpstra drills it. Søren Kragh looks across at a world champion and wonders if he's got the strength to get them across. Another second is added to their advantage. Jens Kukelair is making a name for himself here. Greg Van Avermaet, well, already has a big name, doesn't he?
It's a strong performance, though, by these 2. Kukelair realised earlier on that there wasn't any major cohesion in the front group of 14, so he went hard, took a few riders with him, and now finds himself with you know, one of the strongest riders at the moment, Greg Van Avermaet. But back to the front of the peloton, and it's what a sea of red, and 102 now, so I don't think they can quite believe it at the moment, but they're talking to the other team cars.
Nicky, er naartoe, man. Ja, niet wel. Je moet toch niemand laten wegrijden, zeker? Je moet er niemand laten wegrijden. Nu wel. Oh. Dat is jouw fout of wat?
The red jerseys towards the front of the peloton, but this gap going up to just over a minute now.
It seemed less like negotiation and more sort of an air of resigned frustration. But were they actually managing to encourage the other teams to make the effort to try and close this gap? Now over a minute back for the peloton, so you really think it's pretty much a done deal, so you can understand that that's done at that point. But still 15 seconds for these riders if they can get back in. Inside 10 kilometers to go in Gent-Wevelgem. This one is still very much in the balance. There's an absolute raft of tactical opportunities and tactical possibilities still being played out as Jens Kukelaar, well, he's only got one eye at the moment, and that's on the front, and that's on the finish line in Wevelgem on the Van Akerstraat. Kukelaar he's a handy sprinter, took a victory in the Vuelta last year in a big group, putting riders of the quality of Feline and Sparagli. Solid sprinter. Would he be of the quality of Greg Van Avermaet? Well, that remains to be seen. Will it come down to a sprint? Won the GC in 3 days of West Flanders back in 2010. He's taken the Samin and some other wins, big wins, but this would represent the biggest win in his career should he manage to best Greg Van Avermaet. And indeed, should they manage to hold off the three behind, who've managed to reduce the advantage by a couple of seconds. So Nicky Terpstra does a turn, lifts off, allows Søren Kragh back into position as Peter Sagan rolls to the front.
The thing is, Declan, there's about 4 or 5 teams throwing everything at the chase behind in the peloton, and the gap just hovering about 1 minute. It needs a big effort from all. They have to use up all their support, because it doesn't look as if these guys are coming back quickly.
Greg Van Avermaet winds up a big gear, goes to the front again. It's a small drag. It's going to feel like a mountain right now. The crowd are starting to build. It's just over, 5 miles of racing, 8.3 kilometers to go. The tall, rangy figure of Nicky Terpstra. He's been such a success in classics racing over the years. Former Dutch national champion, former winner of Paris-Roubaix. He knows how to roll the big gear. He knows how to play it tactically. He's beaten Peter Sagan on occasion over the years, but he'll be thinking now about them being teammates. To be honest, it was such an unusual moment. I just want to go back to that moment where Terpstra just lifts off as if to say, well, everyone's not contributing just as they need to. And Sagan said, well, I'm not going to close that gap. And for no reason in particular, they suddenly find themselves chasing.
And they were strong enough to be there. These things happen. If there's no cohesion, you sit up, you lose the wheel. But hats off to these two. They never faltered at all. They were just thinking of, especially Jens Kukelaar. Jens Kukelaar is doing a ride today, a real ride, the Orica Scott rider, and he's got one of the strongest riders in the peloton at the moment, Greg Van Avermaet. Two of them will give a 100%, but this is not over yet. They've been riding into this kind of head crosswind from the left-hand side for a long period of time. They will start to tire. The peloton still have an opportunity here, but the likes of for Terpstra, Quick Step, with it being a World Tour race, the thing is here is they're guaranteed a top 5 at the moment. So it'd be interesting to see who is actually in the bunch behind, because I still think Gaviria could be there, and they've still got an option of winning this race. And maybe a couple of other teams that have got riders in front may contribute to the chase, but again, some of the teams are thinking of those points as well.
Well, this gap is coming down. I tell you what, a few kilometers ago I thought this was a done deal, but the wind is a factor here. Yep. It's not a very stiff wind today, but it's a headwind.
Yep, head just slightly from the left-hand side of the riders, and it's a long way. It's a long way in. It still can come back for a bunch finish.
And even if the bunch don't get there, and I tell you what, at their rate of progress, they're certainly still in this bike race. Even if they don't, look at the way that Peter Sagan, Nicky Terpstra and Søren Kragh are starting to close the gap as well. It's a critical moment, 6.4 kilometres to go, and Greg van Avermaet and Jens Kukelaer cannot afford to waver for 1 minute.
They don't want these three riders to come back to them, because if they do, then there's a potential they won't cooperate, they won't ride with each other, and it'll slow down, and then the bunch will catch them. So we've got 3 races, one at the head of the peloton trying to bring everybody back for a bunch finish. We've got Greg van Avermaet and Kukelaer trying to stay away from the world champion Sagan, Terpstra and
chances in terms of wind direction. I'm thinking they're moving around. The crowd is huge. They'll cheer them on. They'll see 2 Belgians racing to glory, but they've got to get there, and Sagan hasn't given up yet. Neither has Terpstra. Søren Kragh is benefiting here. He hasn't been found wanting. He's made his contribution too, and he's put himself into a prime position. But Greg van Avermaet puts the head down again and drives for the line. And these two are going to have to ride it all the way in, I think. There can be no finessing between them. They're hanging on by their fingernails.
Yeah, they're absolutely burying themselves, especially Greg van Avermaet. He knows he's in a best chance of a podium position here.
Zoveel punten. Ja, als hij wegkomt dan.
Ahead of the peloton. The peloton has the numbers. Do they have the cooperation? We haven't seen them lately. It'll be interesting to see what the dynamics of that particular group are. Did Lotto Soudal manage to recruit some reinforcements to try and assist with the chase? It certainly seems to be the case that there is a little added impetus to their chase, but well, has it been stemmed? Flow's been stemmed a little bit for these 3 riders from 8 to 9 seconds. We're talking fractions. They're trading just fractions of a second at the moment. Down just over 4 kilometres, and Jens Kukelaer, well, his face hasn't betrayed much emotion or much of the strain of the day. And remember, they've over 240 kilometres completed to this point, and that's a lot of miles. That's where the really separates the wheat from the chaff. That's big numbers.
Yeah, just giving full gas, both of them, communicating with each other, one common goal. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. There's a win up for grabs here, but I think both Greg van Avermaet and Jens Kukelaer are happy to try and take this to the finish, to a sprint. The strongest man will win in the end, but these 3 are still battling, and at the same time, it's as we start.
Stoppen af, Lotte stoppen af.
Hier van Groenewegen. De Vrezen.
Wat dan gewonnen met de eerste bocht?
Yeah, peloton are starting to run out of kilometres to bring these riders back now.
Looking like a bit of a worry, all right. Can Sagan and co get back on terms? Well, it slips back out over double figures once more with 3,500 metres remaining. And Jens Kukelaer and Greg van Avermaet, and I just sensed, well, he's out of the saddle there for a moment, as Peter Sagan sits on the wheel of Nicky Terpstra and waits for his turn.
The thing is, the duo in front, the trio here and the peloton, they're all doing about the same speed.
Yeah, 3-way pursuit, everybody going at exactly what it's impressive the speed they're going relative to the peloton. Yeah.
3 and a bunch about 40 odd, and they're all doing the same speeds, and there's probably about 10 riders riding at the front of the peloton. So it just goes to show you the strength of Greg van Avermaet and Jens Kukelaer today.
It's an exceptional performance. They've just got 3 kilometres left to confirm it, to put their stamp on it. and to have the honour of sprinting it out for glory.
The thing is, what's going through Jens Kukeleir's head, he knows he's got a sprint, he knows he's up against the man on form at the moment, Greg Van Avermaet, the Olympic champion. Does he try and bluff? Obviously he would love to be in the podium of this race, but is he thinking of how I can win this race and put the onus in Greg in the last kilometre, just try and sit on him and say, well, it's down to you. You're the big champion, and try and win this race. So it'll be interesting to see as we get into closer to this last kilometre whether in fact Jens Kukeleir starts to miss a turn.
Well, the steam's gone out of it a little bit, hasn't it? The chasing group of 3 at least, if not the peloton. The peloton down to 43 seconds behind the leaders. They have a handy lead on Group 2. Into the final 2 kilometres at Gent-Wevelgem as Jens Kukeleir goes to the front. And now they're down almost to the finessing point, but they still haven't got enough of an advantage to throttle back until the last few hundred metres. The line of Flanders waves in the breeze to present Kukeleir and Greg Van Avermaet through to the finish of Gent-Wevelgem. The 79th edition, a race that's been running since 1934. There wasn't even another visitor to the podium apart from a Belgian rider until 1953. That's how Belgian this race is, and Van Avermaet would dearly love to become the first Belgian to take the honours in a few years, 5 years.
Yeah, if I was Kukeleir now, I would just try and sit on the wheel of Greg Van Avermaet now. The gap is 22 seconds now, and I would just force as they start to do that, he's just trying to entice them to come through. If I was Jens, I would just sit on his wheel now, and they've just started to finesse now.
Well, Van Avermaet will surely have to lead it out. He'll know the way this is played. There's no way Kukeleir's going to come round under the kite, or is he? Will Kukeleir be minded to try a late attack? 22 seconds and not a lot to play with. I tell you what, the peloton are almost on the Sagan group, so there's every chance the peloton could well still be involved in this. Kukeleir goes round just under the kite. I mean, I did not expect that, but I suppose he hasn't been here all that often, and even at 28 years of age, this would be a massive, massive win in Jens Kukeleir's head. It's up to him now. There can be no further contribution from his team car for Orica Scott. It's Greg Van Avermaet he knows just how dangerous this is. They don't have a lot to play with.
No, and he just has to stick here. He was got a little bit nervous. They started slowing down. Kukeleir was kind of cracked first and wanted to keep the momentum going. So for Jens Kukeleir, he just has to sit here and try and beat the man in form.
So they make it to the finishing cameras. They're into the home straight, and Greg Van Avermaet will have the honour of leading it out, such as it is, as honours go. He's looking around anxiously. If they come around the corner, there's still, 400 metres from the line. And I tell you what, they're going to start appearing. So it looks like Søren Kragh has gone to the front with a big attack, and there's the peloton behind. Surely they're going to hang on at this moment. Will the 3 behind hang on to contest 3rd, 4th and 5th? But who's going to get it? 1st and 2nd, Greg Van Avermaet on the front. Jens Kukeleir is in prime position, but it's going to be an almost standstill start to the sprint as Greg Van Avermaet doesn't. He goes first. Greg Van Avermaet gets on the pedals first. Does Kukeleir have what it takes to come round it? Greg Van Avermaet puts the head down and goes. Kukeleir comes on the right hand side. Kukeleir is getting close. Can he make it? Van Avermaet just about manages, and he completes an improbable treble. Greg Van Avermaet takes Gent-Wevelgem as Sagan and the rest manage to just hang on behind, and Søren Kragh is mopped up, and that was as close as it got. Less than 10 seconds at the death, but it's Greg Van Avermaet that completes the triple as being the second man in history to win Omloop Het Nieuwsblad, E3 Harelbeke and Gent-Wevelgem in the same year. Van Avermaet's on fire. Kukeleir can be proud of his contribution.
Nail-biting finish in the end, but Jens Kukeleir did everything that was expected of him, but this man is just on amazing form and takes another win. Looks as if Peter Sagan finishes in 3rd place.
Well, so near and so far, it was a great effort, and Kukeleir, he can smile, but it's a sense of how near and so far as Peter Sagan. I think he'll be just a little bit frustrated with that one.
He's won at the camel first and then in the sprint second.
Yeah, it's for sure. Camel is always a a point where everybody wants to go, and I felt really strong up there. And then hopefully hope to get a good group with me, and that's what had happened. And then we went away with 5 strong guys. And for me, the race was really perfect. I was happy how it went. And I was not expecting to win this one, but I'm really happy to have it again.
Having realized a terrific triple with Omloop, E3, and now Wevelgem, yeah, it makes you probably the main favorite for next Sunday's Tour of Flanders.
Yeah, probably, yes. I think I cannot say anymore. I'm not the favorite anymore, but yeah, for me it's an amazing feeling. Like I said, I had tried so many times to win here, and now I get it all in one season. So it's a wonderful feeling and gives extra confidence for Flanders.
Many congratulations. Hartelijk dank, proficiat. Jan, tell us what happened the moment that group of 5 split into 2.
Nothing. Just I don't know what Terpstra wanted to do, because he attacked to go in the breakaway after he don't want to work. Then this is just one example how you can lose the race against me. What I can do, I am not his teammate. Like, I gonna work for what? After to beat me in the sprint, and I could decide today who can win. Yeah.
So the disappointment is there.
Huh?
Despite that 3rd place, you're disappointed, of course.
It's not disappointment. I am more motivated, because if you are winning always, then you maybe lose motivation. Now I am motivated to take some victory, but still, you know, against everybody is not sport. This is just, I don't know, very cheap game.